What up, 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 everybody? This is your boy, Mr. T Money 1993, creator of the original Panther fan podcast. I call myself the original Panther fan because we got the team October 26th, 1993, and my birthday is October 27th, 1993. So I like to call myself the original Panther fan, the first Panthers fan. PFF put out their Carolina Panthers 2024 outlook. I'm just kind of tuning into it. They put this out a while ago, 3 weeks ago. Sam Monson and Dalton Waisman predict our season. So I kind of wanted to get into it. And let's go.
Obviously his own tier of hire. Dave Canales for me was my favorite hire, other than that of any of these new coaches. I thought he did an absolutely spectacular job.
So you said pretty much Dave Canales his favorite hire, other than the hardball Los Angeles.
Calling plays and really working with what was a flawed team, right? The Buccaneers were the lowest graded team to make the postseason last year, and dealing with a quarterback who was really trying to revamp his career, an offense that struggled the year before, even with Tom Brady, and really a bad interior offensive line that struggled to run the ball and create lanes. Canales did an unbelievable job creating this modern ball control offense, heavy RPO, sort of thing. And I think he can bring that same element to the Panthers. And he came in here. Couple of things I love that he did. He kept Ejiro Avero around as his defensive coordinator because the Panthers don't have a bad defense. And I know they traded Brian Burns, but they still have, when healthy, a pretty good defense, right? Guys like Derek Brown and Shaq Thompson, they brought in Josie Jewell. J.C. Horn is really, really good, makes a huge difference in coverage when he's healthy. And to me, fixing the interior of this offensive line is massive, right? Last year, they had the second worst interior offensive line in the league. Bryce Young pressured on over 40% of his dropbacks. And you talk about, you bring in Robert Hunt, who is this.
That is a crazy stat. 40% of your dropbacks, you're getting pressured. Like, that's a shame. Interior O-line, 31st in overall in pass protection grade.
6th highest graded guard in the league last year. Damian Lewis, who is another solid guard. He has been for 4 years in Seattle. And they get their starting center, Austin Corbett, back, who just dealt with injuries all last year, had a solid 2022. I think only played like 4 or 5 games last year and was a lot better when he's healthy, right? So I think the improvement, especially for a guy like you mentioned, like Bryce Young, who's 5'8", 5'9", interior pass protection is an absolute must. And I think the combination.
That's true. They always say the interior pass rush is important to the shorter quarterbacks, even more so.
Of them improving that and Canales' play calling and a really good group of rookies and additions they made with the weaponry, I'm really optimistic about this Panthers situation. Obviously, we need to see.
Our biggest challenge? Uncertainty.
They got me with that.
Hidden fees, surcharges, who knows what to expect.
Turn shipping to your advantage.
Keep it simple with clear upfront pricing.
With USPS Ground Advantage.
What if I told you that instead of setting up a green screen, you can just click a button into script and get the same?
We need to see Bryce Young play better. But the conditions, much like Trevor Lawrence his first year with the Jaguars, the conditions could not have been any worse. Honestly, I think if you're judging Bryce Young off of 2024, you're doing it a little
a little premature, a lot premature. You got old Adam Thielen as your number one. You get changed from Frank Wright running the offense to Thomas Brown running the offense to back to Frank Wright. You got your O-line getting beat up. You're dealing with horrible pass protection. You're one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league.
2023, I should say, you're doing it a little prematurely.
Yeah, like there's no way of not being a little bit worried by what we saw from Bryce Young last year. But it is reasonable and accurate to point out that everything around him was terrible. I mean, that was a new regime where people got fired at the end of it because it was so bad, right? Like it was legitimately a disaster. The receiving core was clearly a problem from day one. Like on paper heading into the year, that looked like a concern. That was the sort of the cost almost of going to get a guy like Bryce Young is you had to give up DJ Moore to make it happen. So receiving was always going to be a problem. The offensive line, I don't think should have been as bad as it was last year, but was terrible. And that was a major issue. And then the scheme, this kind of weird, disparate collection of coaches just didn't gel together and didn't function as a cohesive unit. So the scheme, I don't think was helping him out either. Now, theoretically, this offseason, all of those things got improved, right? Those are the kind of three pillars of a quarterback support system. The receiving core has been upgraded and updated. You got Deontay Johnson who comes in, who can definitely get separation, right? That's the biggest problem from last year's group. Adam Thielen is still there. Deontay Johnson comes in to definitely add some separation to the table. And then in the draft, they bring in Xavier Legette, this giant contested catch monster who's also got blazing speed. And maybe he's going to be, I don't want to say a one-dimensional receiver, but not the most complete receiver in the world. But the things that he does well should absolutely play from day one. The offensive line, as you talked about, got upgraded. And then the scheme should be simplified, should be streamlined, and has got an immediate, recent, proven track record of succeeding with quarterbacks that had struggles before that. Baker,
not just Baker,
Geno Smith, et cetera. So, I mean, and they even upgraded the backfield. Jonathan Brooks coming in as well, albeit coming off his ACL injury. But theoretically, everything around Bryce Young is better now. And now we should get a better idea of what Bryce Young himself can do. And,
that's all I'm saying, bro. Like, I'm not saying that Bryce is for sure the guy. I just want Bryce to have a fair chance to prove he is or is not the guy. And I think this year is more of a fair chance.
I feel like his size stuff, I mean, obviously it's just funny seeing him walk around next to like NFL size people and it just looks comic. But I feel like when things are going badly, it's easy to kind of focus on that and be like, he's way too small to succeed at the NFL. It's just never going to work. You can't put a guy that size, on an NFL field. It's a disaster. But I don't know if I don't think size was a problem last year for him. Like, I don't think his failures were because he was small. It was just
exactly. He didn't have a lot of balls batted down. Injury-wise, he played more games, even more so than the big rookies. I mean, look at Andy Richardson. Andy Richardson is Cam size, damn near like big boy, and he was beat up. Bryce only missed one game last year.
Just everything went bad. And if things start going well, I don't think we'll be focusing on his size. It's just he's going to be a small quarterback. Like, the problems were not physical, I think, for Bryce Young last season.
Yeah, no, for sure. And
only thing physical that some people have to think is they try to say Bryce can't throw a deep ball. But, I mean, we'll have to see when he has somebody to throw a deep ball to.
You mentioned wasn't ideal, but I don't care if he was 6'5" and 240. He was not going to succeed with that supporting cast that he had. Again, the interior offensive line was a mess. Adam Thielen was by far their best receiver, and I don't know that was the plan going into the year. And Miles Sanders just busted at running back complete. By the end of the year, Chuba Hubbard was just the starter, right? So
that too, you threw a lot of stock into Miles Sanders, and that stock went bad fast.
Right.
Now you look at, you've got Hubbard and Brooks, and I think honestly the guy you mentioned that I wanted to bring up was Legette, because you've got a team really, and I know Bryce Young isn't going to have the biggest arm in the league. He's not a Josh Allen or Herbert or Mahomes, right? But you still have to be able to work the ball downfield, right? And the Panthers had the lowest receiving grade in the NFL on 10-plus yard targets, right? And Young, he had a below average passing grade on those throws, but it certainly wasn't the worst, right? I think it was around somewhere between 20th and 22nd in there. It was not great because he didn't have a whole lot to work with, but when he took shots downfield, he was making a decent amount of the throws, and his receivers were not hauling him in.
And again. Oh, that is true. We didn't attempt a lot, and when we did, a lot of the guys couldn't make it.
Xavier Legette was the highest graded receiver in the country last season on 10-plus yard targets, higher than Harrison, higher than Neighbors, Odunze, Worthy, whoever. He was number one. So when you talk about a guy, even if he doesn't get a high volume of catches, the more I watched him, the more I thought about DK Metcalf, right? When he came out, he was this physical freak. He just looked like a different animal out there, not the most nuanced route runner, but between taking the top off the defense.
I think ACL is a better route runner than DK, though.
For the rest of his receivers, right? They should have other guys that can work underneath. Johnson and Thielen and even Jonathan Mingo. And, I think their 4th-round pick, Jatavion Sanders, could be starting at tight end very, very soon. You talk about the decoy factor, and then there's going to be times, look, when you look at Dave Canales' offense and what he did with, say, a Mike Evans last year, the skinny post and things like that coming off of the play action, coming off of the.
You see ACL on that play action, skinny post. Yeah, sir. It can get
RPOs were just perfect. I mean, he just timed it up perfectly, and it was the right receiver when you talk about a Mike Evans, running those sorts of routes and making plays downfield. Legette's not as tall as Evans. He can absolutely fly, man. He can do exactly what a Mike Evans or a DK Metcalf can do in that offense. I'm looking at Legette to really open things up for Young and create all that space that, one, he can throw it down the field and be more efficient, and two, open up space for all those new weapons you're talking about underneath.
Yeah, I mean, I do expect Carolina to take a significant step forward, a jump forward, really, from last year. I don't know if it's going to be enough to contend, in that division that we just said Atlanta is the favorite for. Tampa Bay should be fine still, even with Canales leaving. The Saints, I think, are probably going to be better than they were a year ago because Derek Carr started to get it together late in the year. And if they get that version of Carr for the entire season, they're probably the team that may be pushing to win that division. Carolina, I think, is probably still team 4 in this division, but now at least things are on the.
Okay, here's my thing with that. Derek Carr that's how he treated me. He always started having certain parts of the year where he looked a little bit better, and you think, oh yeah, because Derek Carr has all the arm talent in the world, bro. It's just his mental, and Dennis Allen loves him some Derek Carr, so he's ready to go down that ship sinking with Derek Carr.
The right for them, theoretically. And if Bryce Young starts to show why he was the number 1 overall pick, and now that we mentioned Bryce Young, it's queuing up Eli to show the video of him arriving at training camp looking like a middle schooler arriving for his first day. I mean, there's no way getting around it, right? It looks ridiculous. He's tiny. The funny thing is, though, like, he's not actually tiny, right? He's my size, right? He's normal size.
I was about to say, like, the guys, oh, Bryce is so tiny. Like, Bryce is probably your height or taller than you.
Human. It's just that you see, remember, like, every time the Olympics comes around, the Olympics is coming around now, and every now and then there's a tweet that surfaces that's like, every single Olympic event should have a regular person running it at the same time, just for context. Bryce Young is the regular human in a world where everybody is 6'5", 250, right? Like, he's just a regular sized person for context at all times. That's what he is, but he's not actually tiny.
Which Bryce is a phenomenal athlete. So you, Joe Schmeus, if Bryce looked like a baby to you, that should let you know you could never play in the league.
Like, he is, I believe his measurement of 5'10", I don't believe is 204 pounds. I think he's like 180, 185. But if he's 5'10", 185, he's my size. That's what a normal size human being looks like out on an NFL field.
Yeah, no, I mean, maybe that's what he is. He's the people's quarterback, right, Sam? It's just he can represent. I think it felt like for a while we had a few guys like that. Well, even Doug Flutie back in the day, right, was one of those guys, or even, to an extent, Drew Brees. I mean, Drew Brees was a freak of nature even at his size, but even him, he was about 6 foot, maybe 210. Like, you've got some of these guys. But again, that's what they always talked about with Bryce Young in Alabama. They're like, don't look at that. It's from the neck up where he's elite and he can make plays and he's just got, high-level instincts. Maybe he'll be protected long enough where we get to see that this year. But it is a fun visual.
Exactly. Protect for my guy long enough so he can make some decisions, and he's going to make some good ones every time.
Especially getting to see him behind these big offensive. Like, think about.
Even last year, he had 10 interceptions. And people forget he had, 4 in the first game? So that means over the last, 15 games he played, he only threw 4 interceptions. That's crazy. With as much as we had going on.
Standing next to a guy like Robert Hunt, and then you see Bryce Young. It's a funny visual for sure, but I mean, look, he was a number 1 pick for a reason, though, even despite that. So I think they should still, if they support him right, and if Canales, I'll tell you what, if Canales calls plays like he did last year, he's got everybody. Maybe that's his new nickname. He's just the people's quarterback is what it should be.
I want to see the first image of Bryce Young and Xavier Legette celebrating. I feel like that's the Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram picture that we need. Like there's going to be a photo of those two handshaking or whatever. It's going to look absolutely insane.
I'm not mad at that outlook. So they said we still probably will be 4th, which you can say that's a fair assessment. Our division's not that great, but they're also, to me, not that bad. They're all kind of middle of the road. So I'm not mad at that. Shout out to PFF for the Carolina Panthers outlook. This is your boy, Mr. Team in 1993, aka with the original Panther fan podcast. Appreciate you tuning in. I'll holler at y'all next time. I'm out.